across this guy called Alex Goad, who
Okay.
also used to be on the ClickBank scene back in the day. And I actually talked to him for a little bit and kind of befriended him briefly. And he actually gave me a lot of encouragement when I was like 14, and he was kind of like impressed with what I was doing and gave me a lot of encouragement. So that was really cool. I'm in my first and second year I'm doing this, and I get this feedback from somebody who's making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, just remember that now. So yeah, cool.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Life of a CEO podcast. I'm your host, Alex Humado, and this is the Life of a CEO. Today, I have a special guest with me, Linus Rylander. And quick backstory about Linus. I got to meet him when I was doing some research on Upwork. I was getting into the freelancing game, trying to find out how clients or business people see the proposals that we send out. And what the video that he and his partner made at that time was very inspirational. They got into the aspect where they people pitched them on working with them, and people did things bad and some people did things good, and they break everything down. And one thing about Linus that I found out was he's worked as a copywriter, and he has made 5 million plus US dollars millions for his clients. And right now he's a coach, he's a mindset coach and a manifestation coach. And I'm so glad that he's on this show today. So welcome, Linus, and welcome to the show. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
All right, Linus. So quick backstory, can you share a little bit about how you got started from a copywriter? What motivated you into getting into this field?
Yeah. So I found one of those like scammy BizOp sales letters when I was like 13. I remember I stole my mom's laptop and I was like doing all kinds of stuff online, and I found this sales letter. And looking back, it was like obviously something like super scammy, but the light bulb that came on for me in my mind was like, holy shit, it's possible to make money on the internet. And if I can figure this out, then I never have to get a real job. So that was basically my thought process. So for the first couple of years, I was like trying this and that. I was into like SEO. ClickBank was like the thing back in the day. So this was like 2008, maybe 2007. And I would basically write these like articles online, and I would write these reviews of these ClickBank products and try to make some affiliate commissions and like rank them in Google. I came up with this thing called a link wheel. I don't know if you ever heard about it. So that was kind of my first 15 minutes of fame in the internet world. I wrote a little PDF that went viral. And that's kind of how I got my start. And then at about 16, I found this book by John Carlton called Kick-Ass Copywriting Secrets of a Marketing Rebel. And that just opened up my whole world to this idea of like copywriting. And I realized like, holy shit, like this is what it's really about. And if you don't get this, like if you want to make money, it makes sense to know how to sell something, right? And if you want to know how to sell something, you got to understand why people buy stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of connecting that to like my interest in this has always kind of been the psychology of it. Like if you want to understand why somebody buys something, you have to understand why people do anything, right? So you have to understand what is it that motivates action. So yeah, that's pretty much how I got my start as a copywriter. And then I remember I heard this thing from Perry Marshall, and he said, the only way to become a true wizard is to become a consultant, because you get to have your fingers in many pies. So that's what made me make the decision to like want to work with clients. And I was doing all of this along with my business partner, Francesco Frena, who I would rate as probably one of the top email marketers in the world right now. So shout out to Frankie.
Mm.
But yeah, so we've been working together this whole time, and I've done all sorts of businesses together ever since then. A lot of info businesses, people who sell courses, coaching programs, stuff like that. Tried some other things along the way. We did some e-commerce, like Facebook ads to e-com Shopify. We ran a Facebook ads agency for local
Mm.
businesses for a couple years, and and then we went back to copywriting and consulting, leading up to last year, and then this year is when I went full time into the coaching. So that's a
Mm.
very brief kind of story. Yeah.
Yeah. So from what you just mentioned so far, you mentioned that you got your start from getting access to a sales page. And tell us what was the product, what was the main product that got you interested?
Oh, the very first one.
Yeah.
There was this guy, Nick, I think so don't quote me on this, but I think
Okay.
his name was Nick Marks. He used to be one of this like I am BizOp, like ClickBank guys.
Mm.
And then I came across this guy called Alex Goad, who
Okay.
also used to be back big on the ClickBank scene back in the day. And I actually um, talked to him for a little bit and kind of befriended him briefly. And he actually gave me a lot of encouragement when I was like 14, and he was kind of like impressed with what I was doing and gave me a lot of encouragement. So that was really cool. I'm in my first and second year I'm doing this, and I get this feedback from somebody who's making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So yeah, just remember that now. So yeah, cool.
Wow,
That's about it.
that's really cool because one thing that I've really learned is that once like you start making progress and you get mentors. Mentors are some people that can really skyrocket your progress. So it's really inspiring how you even got access to. But can you tell us how like he reached out to you in the first place and what were you doing at that time?
Um, Honestly, I don't remember.
Mm.
I think I remember kind of chatting with him on Skype or something, but I don't remember how we got there. Uh, might have been through some like online forum or some. I do remember everybody was on the forums like
Mm.
2008, 2009. There was a lot of forums. Like I was on uh Digital Point, probably racked up like 1,000 points. So yeah, for all the old school people, there was Digital Point, Niche Choppers, which was run by another friend of mine.
Mm.
Yeah, I got my start on the forums basically.
Nice, nice.
Um,
So this is to show everyone out there that you helping other people can really put people to recognize you. So if you are someone that is stuck and you don't want to put yourself out there and help other people, this is your chance to go and help others. All right. So you also mentioned that you created a lead magnet or a free guide to, and that's what went viral. What's is that? Can you teach us the go through the process of what you were trying to solve at that time and what's your mindset and thoughts behind creating that was.
so yeah, that was pretty funny. I had this little blog. I think I call it like Unstupid Marketing or something. I was like 14 years old doing this, and basically I figured out a way to sort of interlink social media properties. So I would
Mm.
have like one main page, which was the like affiliate review page, which we'd call like the money page.
Mm.
And then I would make like put an article on like easing articles, and I would put one, so there were used to be like Squidoo and Hub Pages and what else? Like what was it? Like Live Journal, all these like free blog properties where you could put up articles basically. And I would link one to the other, so it kind of went in a circle if you want to visualize it. And then
Okay.
all of them had links pointing to the money page. And I basically called that a link wheel.
Mm.
And so yeah, it's like seemed to work pretty good. I remember I had like my first kind of success. I was promoting this ClickBank product, and it got me like 40. I think it got $40 commissions, and I would sell like 10 a day. So here
Mm.
I was like 14 years old making like $400 a day, and it
Wow.
was like I made like $10,000 in a summer between was it yeah, the summer between 8th and ninth grade, I think. So I thought I was just like invincible at that time. I was just on top of the world. And I thought I'd probably be a millionaire in 6 months. And that like still hasn't happened.
Okay.
But my confidence was at like an all-time high. Um,
Mm,
so what happened was I made this like little PDF report and I put it on my site, made a little squeeze page. And there used to be, I guess it's still around, but there was a Black Hat SEO forum called Black Hat World,
okay.
where some people would take like they would like pirate products like these marketing products and they would just put them
Mm,
up for free. And somebody had taken my report and put it up there, but I figured like I'm not even selling this. It's just like a free thing I'm giving away anyway.
mm,
So all good if people share it. That's fine by
mm,
me. I'm not getting their emails, but whatever. So what I did was I jumped into that thread and I was just like, hey guys, I'm the guy who wrote this. If anybody has any questions, let me know.
okay.
And you know what most people would do when they found stuff like that is they would ask them to take it down.
Mm,
But I did the opposite of that, and that I guess won me a lot of points with the community. So yeah, the thread kind of just blew up, and yeah, it's like it got so much engagement, it just stayed at the top. It kept getting bumped up, and if I recall, that the thread went to like 8 or 9 pages.
wow.
And that's actually how I met my business partner. He was one of the guys who reached out to me from that, and then
Wow.
we kind of started talking. But I think it was because of that thread that the thing went viral, and
Mm,
yeah, so after that my email list like blew up to like 5,000 people. And um yeah, that's pretty much how I got my start. Like looking back
wow.
now, if I knew then what I know now about all about business and marketing, I easily could have turned that into like $1 million business.
Mm.
But back then I was really like stubborn, and I didn't even know what I was doing, but I thought I did, you know. And I was like, and I had people reaching out to me all the time to like build link wheels for them, and I was like, oh no, I
Mm,
don't want to be a service provider, and I want to do my own thing. And then there were all these companies, like there were literally agencies popping up just doing link wheels for other people, and they were charging them
mm,
like $300 a pop, um, $500 in some cases. And um, yeah, I just never thought to do that myself.
mm,
But
mm.
yeah, hindsight is 2020, I guess.
Yeah. So one thing, so just to take a step back, you said you mentioned something really interesting that you said what you now know now, if you had known it in the past, you would have done some things differently. So let's say you were in the past right now, and with the knowledge that you now know, what would you have done when you started having those engagement and traffic getting to your website, your link web?
It's an interesting question because I kind of have two sides of it, and
Okay.
the first side of it is um, I don't know if I would want anything to have happened differently, because then
Mm.
I wouldn't be where I am now,
Yes,
you
yes.
know. But I do see the potential of what could have happened, which was that probably that I would have started an agency doing link wheels for people,
Mm,
because there were other people doing that, but like I was the guy who invented it, so it would have been like really easy for me to be that market leader. And I already had the positioning, and people were already asking me, like it was all like laid out for me, so that would have been really easy, and
mm,
that could
mm.
easily have been like a 100K a month business, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. So, so from that point on, you mentioned that you got your business partner to reach out to you. Then, so when you reach out, what were you doing at that time? What work were you doing at that time when you reach out?
um I don't remember exactly what he said, but I think he just had some questions, and we ended up talking. And we added each other on MSN Messenger,
Okay.
which is what we used back then, and we just kind of became friends. We were just talking all the time, you know, about what we had going on. And It wasn't until about 2 years later, around the time, so we both kind of got into copywriting around that time, like 2 years later,
Mm,
and we were both kind of between projects, and we decided, let's just do this thing together. And we figured kind of our USP as copywriters back then is you kind of get two copywriters for the price of one. And we would kind of tackle these projects together, and it was pretty cool. And we learned to work really well together. Like we would sit literally like, and still to this day, we could sit in the same Google Doc, for example, and like
mm,
write copy together. Uh, so like literally finishing each other's sentences, like in some cases,
yeah.
right? Uh, and then we started kind of specializing a bit more. So let's say we would get a project, and let's say there's a funnel or something.
Mm,
So I would usually write the main sales presentation, whether it's a sales letter, VSL, webinar, whatever. And he would usually do the emails. So
mm.
um, that's kind of how we divided that up. Um,
Nice,
yeah.
nice. All right. So you mentioned that you got access to you started copywriting when you bought John Carlton's Kick-Ass Copywriting when you started getting into that field. So how did you start practicing getting good in copying? Tell us the process. How do you start getting good with copy, practicing and whatnot?
Um, So, I mean, I read all the books that they say you're supposed to read, all
Yeah.
the classics. I studied John Carlton, Gary Halbert, um, Perry Marshall was a big influence for me. I was reading his newsletters, the Renaissance Club. Still to this day, I think he's one of the. If you go on his site and like read his offers, it's some of the best copy you'll find.
Mm,
Um, and all the classics, Ogilvy, Eugene Schwartz. I would hand copy all these ads. I would sit there like hand copying ads. But really, I think you're not gonna start getting good until you actually start writing, until there's
mm,
something on the line. I actually started on a forum as well. I just put up a post. I did like one or two projects for free just to get
mm,
like reviews from people, get some testimonials, that kind of thing. And then my first paid gig was there was this Australian guy who was selling a laser hair comb
mm.
that was supposed to help regrow your hair for like bald people. So that was my first paid gig. I got like $800.
Oh,
Um, and then I think the second one, let's see, there was a guy who was selling it was one of these like make money online offers where they teach you how to take like online surveys and get paid for it or something like that.
yeah.
I wrote a sales letter for that for like $1,600, I think 1,500, something like that. And yeah, so that's kind of how it started.
Mm,
And then got some other people through various forums, and I grew pretty organically. So, and then actually on Upwork, which was Odesk at the time, we found so Peter, the guy I did that video with.
yeah.
Um, so we met on because he had a job post on Odesk, and I was like 18 at the time. So that's it's like we started working together then, which is like 11 years ago. So we've been working together for a long time. So that was kind of my first, I guess you could say, long-term client that I kept working with
Mm,
long term. And then after that, um, I I moved to Thailand when I was 20, and shortly we had some like other projects in between, which was like the Shopify stuff, for example. We did some Amazon stuff, and then we started the ads agency.
mm,
So we were kind of in this place with copywriting where we would get the clients were a bit too far between. So we would get one gig and maybe we'd get 5K or 10K in some cases. Like we were doing pretty good, and we were But then, once the project was finished, then we got to chase a new client again.
Yeah.
And we got just really tired of that chase. So we were like, let's see if we can do something where we can get paid every month, and we had experience running Facebook ads from doing the Shopify stuff and from doing some other stuff previously. So we decided to start an ads agency, basically doing Facebook ads. And we just kind of started with cold email. We picked like a bunch of different markets that we thought would be good fits, and we started mailing these things out. We would our offer was we would build a mock-up campaign for somebody, and then we recorded a little video showing what it looked like, and then we're like, hey, let us run this campaign for you for free for 24 hours. You just put in $100, and that goes direct to Facebook, not to us, and we just see if it works. And if it works, we take it from there. If it doesn't work, you're out at $100, and no big deal. So we got our first client from that. The trial campaign went really well, and that was a martial arts school in Houston, Texas. Shout out to Team Took Mixed Martial Arts Academy. It was our first client there. And so that went pretty good. And then we instantly got like 5 referrals from his like affiliate schools.
Nice.
So now we're sitting there with like 5 or 6 martial arts school clients. And then we're like, hey, let's just specialize. Like, we got this thing going now. We got some momentum here. Let's just specialize and be like the #1 Facebook ads guys for martial arts schools. And then that we eventually grew that to about 25, 26K a month in about, I don't know, a year or so, probably. Actually, probably less than a year, maybe closer to 6 months. And so that was really the first time I made any kind of like real money, if you will. So, then a bunch of stuff happened. We actually got hacked at one point. So our whole backend got fucked up, and all of our clients' stuff, like they weren't getting their leads delivered, and it was a huge mess. And this is when I started becoming aware more and more of this like mindset stuff, if you will. So we lost like 50% of our clients in a short amount of time. And from there, it just like the momentum just hit this, like just came to a screeching halt. And I was watching that business dip every single month for over a year. And I was living in Thailand, and I was also newly single after like a 3-year relationship. And I was making friends and, stuff like that. Like I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out of school at 16 to 20. I was pretty much in my mom's basement trying to build my business, dreaming about traveling. Didn't have any social life at all. When I came to Thailand, I was in a relationship pretty much right away. And my first 3 years in Thailand was just like me and her. Still didn't really have a whole lot of friends. So only after that ended, I started going out and just discover this whole new world. So that's what was interesting to me at that time. And I was making plenty of money, we were making 20K plus a month. And I was like, oh, it's fine. And then, a couple clients drop out, and it's like, it's fine. We're still making 18K, next month, 16K, 15, 14, 12. And then, 6 months later, hey, it's cool. We're still making 10K a month, and I was just kind of in denial about what was going on. And psychologically, I wasn't used to making that kind of money. It didn't feel normal to me. And so, yeah, I was just watching that business slowly burn to the ground. And the weird part about it was, like, I knew what was going on. I knew what we could do to fix it, but I just didn't have any motivation at all, no interest in fixing it. All my creativity was like burnt out. Everything I was doing in the business felt like a chore. And the whole thing just felt like this huge like weight around my ankle, you know?
Yeah.
And I think part of me was kind of relieved in a way
Mm.
to see it go. I liked the money, but I didn't like the business, you know? And yeah, so I told you in a message earlier that, you know, hit the same income ceiling in like
Yeah.
4 different businesses in a row. And so it's experiences like this where I started thinking like, hey, maybe my level of success doesn't have that much to do with what business we're in, what kind of strategies or tactics or whatever like latest thing is going on or whatever we're into. Because in several drastically different businesses, we kind of hit the same point and we couldn't
Mm.
go any further. And then at that point, the momentum would die, our motivation would die. And then, you know, the whole thing would crash and burn and we're back to the drawing board. So that kept happening. And I realized this is all in my fucking head. You know,
Mm.
it has nothing to do with the business, has nothing to do with what I'm even doing.
Yeah.
It's all in my head, you know. Um, so I got really obsessed with trying to figure that out because I
Mm.
realized if I don't figure that out, it doesn't matter what I do, same thing's gonna
It's
happen
gonna happen.
again.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I really resonate with your story where you mentioned that you weren't part, you didn't have any social life at all, because one thing about this industry, copywriters, is most of the people in it are introverts. So most of us like to find ourselves alone doing the work and not really
For
socializing out
sure.
there. So, and one thing that I started doing even this year was going to events myself, because one thing I noticed was I found myself in the room every time. So I started going to events. So another thing that I also remembered, and you talking to Peter about on one of your episodes or recordings, was once people started and once your clients started and they started canceling, and you didn't even answer your calls. There was another person who was getting anxious and crying about people canceling, and you somewhere else. So when you started getting into the mindset stuff, how did you start building yourself up there? How did you start changing your perspective about what was happening to work around and making it work?
Um, so I guess at first I tried what I think most people try, which I think you see like there's a lot of like hustle culture online, a lot of people talking about discipline and willpower and um, you know, time management, like having the perfectly structured day or the right morning routine and
Mm.
all this kind of, so none of that never worked for me. And I never really resonated with the idea of discipline in the first place. Because it's like discipline implies some kind of struggle or a fight. Like it's like you have to overcome yourself. And then it's like, wait a minute, who's overcoming who exactly? Like it's just fucking me, you
Mm.
know? So why do I feel like I got to battle against myself? And so that the whole idea of it was just weird for me. Like, um, and so as a copywriter, I learned that if you want to get somebody to take an action, it has to do with your belief system. So all copywriting and getting a sale, it comes down to um, being able to figure out what beliefs are getting in the way of somebody taking an action and what do they need to believe instead in order to buy.
Mm.
So I think of like, let's say there's a river and the water's flowing, but the beavers have been at work. So there's a dam blocking the flow of the river. So you can kind of see that as, you know, let's say your desire to get something done.
Mm.
And so people think they lack motivation, but the motivation is there because if there wasn't a motivation to get something done, they wouldn't even be worried about not being motivated,
Yeah.
right? So, uh, so the desire to do it is there, being expressed. Um, so let's say somebody who's been wanting to go to the gym, but they might be afraid of what people might think of them, or they think they might look stupid in front of all these super fit people. So you have unconscious mind actually trying to protect you from judgment. So there's like that unconscious block, and you can't solve that with discipline. You can't solve that with willpower. Like, doesn't matter how much you pump yourself up in the morning, it's not going to stop you from being afraid of judgment, right? So I realized that's where that work needs to happen. And so 2019, so I'm in Sweden now, and I was staying at my family's house, and I had just arrived back here, and I was not in a good place at the time. And I had started watching Joe Dispenza, and he said something that just really made me think a lot. And he said, a clear intention plus an elevated emotion has an effect on matter. And so a whole other part of the story that I haven't gotten around to was I'd been doing this thing called Sedona method, which I discovered when I was like 21, maybe. And it's a way of kind of releasing emotions, and, well, you elevate your emotional state. And I'd even had some kind of psychedelic experience just doing that. And so when I heard Joe Dispenza talk about that, I was like, hey, wait a second. I already got a way to elevate my emotions. And I knew this way of setting an intent, which was this exercise called the perfect day, which I had heard from many very successful people. I'd heard it from like Frank Kern. He swore by this, and I heard it from maybe 4 or 5 other people separately. So I figured maybe we can combine these 2 ideas. And that was basically the start of what I ended up calling the daily alignment practice. And the idea is just to get your mental and emotional state in an optimal state as you begin the day. So you release whatever emotional conflicts you have going on in the moment. You start feeling better. You start feeling more light, more free. So you elevate your energy, and then you focus that energy towards that perfect day. And when I did this the first time, there were several things that I wrote in the perfect day that just kind of started showing up in my life. I was between places in Bangkok. I'd canceled my contract on my apartment, and I didn't have a place to stay for when I went back. So I wrote in the perfect day that I wanted to live in a townhouse, because I had a friend who lived in a townhouse, and I thought it was really cool. Lots of space, more privacy, all this kind of stuff, more value for the money, basically. So I thought maybe I want to live in a townhouse. So I wrote that down in the perfect day. I was also about 1 year into DJing at the time. I started DJing, and I wrote down that I wanted to play at 2 festivals. And this was all part of that kind of vision that I created. 2 weeks later, after I start doing this, I get a message from that same friend. And he was like, hey, man, like, my other roommate's moving out. I was wondering if you might be interested in taking the room. And so it's like, shit, like 2 weeks after I write, I want to live in a townhouse. The only guy I know with a townhouse asked me if I want to move in. And then later I found out that the room would become available on October 21st. And what I hadn't told him was that my return ticket to Thailand was for October 21st. So the room became available on the exact same day that I landed in Thailand.
Wow.
A couple months after that, I got booked for Wonderfruit Festival, which is kind of like it's one of the biggest events of the year. People call it like the Burning Man of Asia. And 2 or 3 months after that, I got booked for another huge event called Color in the Park. And so it's like I just wrote this shit down, and it happened. And I thought maybe I'm onto something,
Yeah.
So and that was the first time also. Like, I've been into this personal growth, self-help stuff my whole life, but this was the first time I had something of my own. I had this own framework that I developed. I tested it, and it worked. So that's kind of where I started down this coaching path, where maybe I have something that I can teach others, which is leading up to what I'm doing now. I'm coaching full time now as of this year.
Yeah. So since we've already got into the state now, you mentioned now you coach people with this with how to get unstuck. So when you started the coaching, how did you start getting clients in? How did you start getting the word out there?
Honestly, this whole thing has been almost purely like its own manifestation. It was like random people tagging me in Facebook comments. Like that's literally how it started. Like there was no strategy. And I remember I was on this master class, like this webinar with another coach, and he said, you have to get to a point where you just feel like you like identifying with this thing that you want to do. Like you can't like be sitting on the sidelines hoping that something's going to happen. And I forget exactly what he said, but basically I had this moment to myself in my room, and I just like decided, and the words that I said to myself was like, this is who I am and this is what I do. And after that Facebook comment that I mentioned, that was like a couple days later, and literally that same week I had 3 people booking sessions with me just out of nowhere.
Wow.
So like that's how it started, and then it's just been momentum building from there.
Yeah, so even from your website, the website that you sent me to us, you mentioned that's manifest momentum. So all the keywords that we mentioned so far is momentum, manifest. So from then on, from that comment on, how did you start? How is the progress now? How is it growing?
Do we have more time after, because I'm seeing this timer?
You no worries, if it gets off, I'll still we'll still jump on and then we record.
Okay. Yeah. So this year, in January, I stumbled across this thing called RRT, which stands for Rapid Resolution Therapy. And I get exposed to a lot of things, and in this field, I've pretty much seen everything under the sun, everything from like the esoteric spiritual stuff to like the very like hardcore like neuroscience and everything in between. But for some reason, this thing caught my attention, and I saw a clip of Dr. John Connolly, who's the founder of Rapid Resolution Therapy. He was sitting with this woman who was in severe pain, and she was feeling a lot of rage from a rape that happened like 16 years ago. And she came in on a walker, like she couldn't even walk properly because she was in so much pain. And he sat down with her, and he was able to completely clear that up in a 20-minute conversation. And there's people who go to therapy for 10 years and they don't even get close to where he was able to get her in such a short time. And I realized I'm watching somebody who's an absolute master. And I've been a copywriter. I've studied like persuasion and storytelling, and everything I've done has been about communication. And watching this guy was the greatest demonstration of communication skills that I had ever seen. It was like watching Michael Jordan play basketball, So I was just amazed. I was blown away, and I decided to sign up for the intro course back in January. And yeah, that's just what I've been into ever since. And it's all about communicating actually directly with the unconscious mind. So if you understand that thoughts and emotions, like people are aware of what they're thinking and feeling, but they don't really consciously choose or select their emotions. But the advice that you get from people if you're going through something is kind of stuff that implies that you chose what you felt.
You were talking about how we are not able to choose our emotions. Even people around us are able to influence our emotions and behavior. So you were on that trajectory?
Yeah, like, if somebody's going through something, what is it they hear from the people around them? It's like, they might say, just get over it, or they might say, you just need to let it go, or you need to think more positively, but if they were able to do that, they probably would have done it already. So it's unlikely that that would cause somebody to feel better. Most likely would cause them to feel worse, because you're like pointing out something that they're not able to do.
Yeah.
So what people tend to do is they try to change the way they're feeling from the place where it's being felt, rather than where it's generated. So and it just doesn't really work. So you need to find a way to reach that unconscious processing part of the mind where that emotion comes from. And if you know how to do that, you can cause shifts to happen very quickly. So if you understand that, basically the unconscious mind, it just wants to make sure that you're not dead, like that. So it's responsible for all the things going on in your body. Like it's what makes your heart beat faster when you're running up a hill. And when you think about it, it's doing that to increase your chances of survival. So everything's about survival. And um, this is for, if you want to bring it to entrepreneurship, this is where a lot of people start running into walls, because let's say they got this great big vision that they want to accomplish, but there might be beliefs, like it might lead to disappointment, or it might lead to failure, or it might lead to judgment from people, or people were afraid of, let's say, posting content online. It's all this conditioning that was built into, like, from childhood, and your unconscious is really just trying to protect you. So I would also say it's not very useful to say things like your own worst enemy. And this whole, so again, going back to this idea of discipline, that you always got to fight yourself. Well, first of all, realize that the thing you're fighting is something that's trying to protect you. So as far as your protection goes, I'm pretty sure you're already on the same side when it comes to that. You're both, your conscious and your unconscious, like, you're in agreement that surviving is a pretty good idea. So to then be able to get that in alignment, so your unconscious realizes that this thing you're trying to do is actually not dangerous. And once it gets that this path is actually safe, then it stops generating those emotions that are designed to protect you, because there's nothing to protect you from. So now the path is clear. Now you've broken through that dam, right? And now there's no discipline required, because there's nothing to fight against. You're on the same team. So yeah, now I'm, it kind of, in sessions kind of like this, all the time, just working with people to actually help them cause those shifts so that they can get unstuck and move forward. It does say on my IG that I teach about manifestation, which I do. But usually we don't even talk, like, I don't even talk about that with clients for, the first month or two. But what happens is, we get all this stuff cleared up, and then the manifestation starts happening automatically. Like, there's no trying to manifest. You have an intent, and once you get rid of all the beliefs that are getting in the way of that, it just kind of shows up. And there's no need to, like, sit and visualize all day and make vision boards and hope that something's going to happen. It's not really how it works. It's just about getting in alignment, and then everything starts coming your way very easily. And then they notice these things showing up, and they're like, holy shit, what the fuck just happened? I've had things like, I've literally had thousands of dollars just, like, show up in my bank account, like things like that start to happen. I've had probably 5 or 6 clients just after the first session that they have some kind of, like, manifestational result, or something just pops up into their life that makes no sense. And they're like, holy shit. So only after somebody has that experience, that's when we start talking about manifestation and how that
Nice,
actually works.
nice, nice.
Yeah.
So to just recap what you mentioned earlier, you mentioned that you had to list down your perfect day. You list down what you wanted to happen, then you elevate your emotions on that time, and you elevate your emotions. Then another thing that I also found out that your clients mentioned was you mentioned about letting go. Can you explain a little bit about what they mean by letting go?
Yeah. So I I'm kind of torn with this because it's something that for most people when they hear it, if somebody tells you, like if you're dealing with some really like fucked up shit that happened in your life that's causing you to be really upset, and somebody tells you, oh, you just need to let it go, it's probably just going to piss you off, you know? So I think for the most part, the idea of letting go isn't very useful unless you know how to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but what I would say is the most straightforward path to get that done is to work with somebody who knows how to unhook it from your unconscious mind. There are ways that you can do it yourself. One of them being Sedona method, which is what I was practicing for many years. Just as a quick example, the basic Sedona method is just it's 4 questions. So um, if you can think about something that you've been wanting to change, or anything you've been wanting to control, anything that you wish was different, and when you think about that, you're probably going to notice some kind of sensation in your body, maybe a contraction, some feeling in your chest or your throat, or maybe your stomach. So just being aware of that, the first step is to welcome that feeling and allow that feeling to be there. Because what we always do is when we feel it, we try to push it away, we resist it. So just simply welcoming the feeling, allowing it to be there just for a moment, already begins to sort of unhook it. Um, one of these like grandfather clocks,
Yes.
one of these big clocks with all the gears and stuff. So um, if you open up one of those things and you see those gears inside, it's a pretty complicated mechanism. But all you got to do is take out one tiny
Yeah.
gear, and now the thing becomes it's just the whole thing is disabled,
Yes.
right? So let's say something like I don't know, anxiety. And if you think about anxiety, and I tell you, oh, anxiety, it's that feeling in your chest, right? And you might say, no, it's not. Well, the feeling in the chest is a part of it, but it's not the whole thing. So if we can just attend to that part and we disable it, it disables the whole thing, if that makes sense. So first step, you be aware of that feeling, welcome that feeling, allow it to be there. And then there's 3 questions. First question is, could you let it go? And could you is it's not a request. It's not like, could you pass the salt? I'm not asking you to do something. I'm asking you to check if you can, right? So if I say, could you let it go? And you don't have to let it go. Just check if you're able to. You're checking for that ability. Could you? And if you could, then would you? In other words, are you willing to? So then the next step is the willingness to be free from that thing. And the final question is when. And when is an invitation to do it now. And you see a lot of these, it's a very simple framework, and you can just repeat it over and over again to yourself until you'll get to a point where you literally feel that thing like lifting off of you and dissolving. And this is like the main thing that I was practicing for probably 8 or 9 years until this year, where I've been doing mostly RRT. So RRT you would do with somebody else. Sedona method would be a good thing to work with yourself. But either way, for example, just that aspect of the willingness. I notice when I'm working with people that sometimes there's a conflict. Sometimes people want to, like, even though an emotion might be painful, let's say something like anger or resentment. Um, if you're dealing with a lot of anger, like, you have to be willing to be free of it. Some people feel that like, if they let go of the anger, then the person who pissed them off will be getting away with it. So, or like, it wouldn't be fair, or like they're winning somehow if you're free from this pain. But then, think about somebody who, uh, there's a girl and somebody broke her arm. There's some asshole that just broke her arm, right? And she goes to the hospital, um, and the doctor says, "Well, is it okay for me to fix your arm? Is it okay that I put this bandage on and this cast, whatever?" Um, and she said, "Oh, of course, it's okay if you fix my arm. What, doesn't it mean that the guy would be getting away with it?" It's like, "No, doc, please, like, just fucking fix my arm, dude."
Yeah.
So you have to clear that conflict. Um, so yeah, so could you let it go? Are you able to? Would you? And when? And what ends up happening is, as you're aware of this emotion, because people have emotions and people have thoughts, but a lot of the times it's like the thoughts have them or the emotions have them. They're just like trapped inside of it. And what happens as you're doing this process or other processes is you're able to get a little distance from it, where you're almost like you're looking at it from the outside. Um, and one of the questions I will ask somebody is like, are you that emotion? Are you that feeling? Or are you that which is aware of it? And then suddenly you realize you're not the emotion. And then it kind of just unhooks. So those are a few different ways of thinking about letting go. But yeah, it like takes some practice, or it takes working with somebody who knows how to facilitate that. But for the average person, if you tell them, "Oh, just let it go," it's going to have the opposite effect.
Wow.
That's probably what I'd say.
That's interesting, because one of the key things that you really mentioned was your ability to see what is, then ask yourself whether you are able to make the change happen. So for someone who wants to start their business, because one thing that is really happening right now is a lot of people are being laid off their businesses, they are being laid off their jobs, and yeah, on the
Yeah.
search right now, if you watch LinkedIn, there's a lot of people with the green banner that are saying that they are open to work. So let's take, for example, someone who has been laid out from work right now and is willing to is wanting to start their own business. What would that process be like? What would you advise that person to do?
So just to make sure so you're asking somebody who's been laid off and they
Yes.
want to start a business,
Yes, but
what
they
they
are,
should do.
yes, but let's say there's maybe they're afraid of starting because they're afraid of being criticized, afraid of being like mocked. They don't want to put themselves out there. What would you advise the person to do? Or how would that person overcome that?
Um, if you'd asked me this a year ago, I probably would have said something totally different. Um, but I see now the fastest path to get clear of any emotional turmoil or any emotional blocks is to just go and find somebody who knows how to clear it. Just like if you have a tooth problem, you go to the dentist.
Yeah.
Or if you have a car problem, you go to a mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really only picked up this perspective since getting into the RRT world, when I realized that this is possible. Because I think, the mental health industry has a pretty bad rap, and mostly because what most people do is pretty ineffective. Like, why would you need to go to therapy for 5 years? Like, and therapists, they charge by the hour. So it's a conflict of interest right there. They need you to come back so they can pay the rent.
Yeah.
So getting you mentally healthy is actually not in their best interest. Um, so I think the mental health industry, like people would look at it differently if people actually knew what they were doing. And if you have a problem with your car and you take it to the mechanic, you're not paying him for how long he takes to fix the car. If you go to the dentist, like if you want to book an appointment with the dentist, they're going to ask you what it is you need to get done, and they'll charge you based on that. If you need a root canal, they charge you for a root canal. If you need teeth whitening, they charge you for teeth whitening. You don't call them and ask like, "Hey doc, how much for an hour in the chair?"
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. So what my specific recommendation would go to rapidresolutiontherapy.com and find a facilitator, pay them a couple $100 or whatever it is, and just get somebody who knows what they're doing and get it clear for you. There's also like the self-help route to doing that, which is probably going to take you years before you get any good at it, which is what I did.
Yeah.
And I feel like I wasted a fucking decade trying to figure myself out when I could have gone to a professional, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like trying to fix your own teeth. People go to dental school for a long time to learn how to do that. Why would I try to figure out that for myself? So that probably a pretty unconventional answer, but that's probably what I would say.
Nice. So for those that are unstuck, it's better for them to get someone who knows what they're doing instead of them like maybe wasting their years trying to figure it out on their own. The same even goes to let's say learning copywriting, for example. If once you get a coach that's mentoring you, there's rapid growth in what you are doing instead of you can do it studying on your own, but once you find a coach to like mentor you on what you're doing, the person knows exactly where to pinpoint your fault and then to help you with that.
100%. So I'll tell you, in 2021, I guess. So I joined this very high level program, which was like a $30,000 mastermind, basically. And when I got into that group, there was like people would post their offers and post their copy and whatever. And I just started posting a lot of the stuff we were writing in there. And you would have these guys just come in and just completely shred it. And I would rewrite it, and they would shred it again, and I would rewrite it. And at that point, I'd already been copywriting like for like 10 years or whatever. And but about 10 years, I'd already been like a professional copywriting, doing this full time for a living. And it was really at a very advanced level. And I improved more in 3 months being in that group than I did, in the 5 years prior, trying to figure shit out for myself.
Right.
So 100%, like find somebody who's like, when it comes to learning a skill, find somebody who's way better than you and get them to show you, and specifically get their feedback. Like have them watch you do it or look at what you've done and tell you what you need to change. And then you repeat that process until they tell you it's good. And like, if you don't have somebody else looking at what you're doing, you don't have a feedback mechanism, you don't know. Or if your only feedback mechanism is the market, and you have to like launch an offer and see if it sells and then repeat that, that's going to take you so long. So it, like, if you think of the cost of hiring a coach to look at what you're doing versus the cost of spending the next 5 or 10 years figuring it out yourself, like it's a no-brainer, absolute no-brainer. And when it comes to overcoming like mental blocks and stuff like that, it's really the same thing. And like with RT practitioners, for example, like you can get something cleared for probably a couple $100 in most cases. If you want to work with John directly, like the founder, I think he charges like $3,000 for a session. But it's like, would you pay Michael Jordan $3,000 for teaching him how to play basketball for an hour. Like you probably get a lot more done in an
Yeah,
hour with Michael Jordan than, somebody else. So either
yeah,
way, it's a no-brainer,
absolutely. You find, even if you don't have the means, you even work towards getting it. If like there's one thing that I found out is, if you have the need to get good at something, you find a way to get someone to give you feedback about what you're doing. So Linus, I don't
Yeah.
want to really take much of your time. So what would be your final thoughts that you want to share with us for today?
Um, yeah, just I guess just coming off of what we were just talking about, I literally spent, a decade running into my own mental blocks and just kind of spinning my wheels to figure this stuff out. And I would encourage people to learn from my mistakes.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that mental and emotional part figured out, and then it doesn't actually matter what you do. It doesn't matter what business you start. It doesn't matter what kind of shiny object you chase after or what the fucking gurus are telling you. Nothing is going to work if you're coming from the wrong place mentally and emotionally. Like it literally doesn't matter what you try, it's not going to work. So I would really encourage people to look at that side of things.
That's interesting. So, for where to find you, for people that want to reach out to you, where is the best place to reach out to you?
Yeah, so my website is manifestmomentum.co, but mostly I'm active on Instagram, which is just my name, Linus Rylander, LinusRylander. You'll find me there, and I'm sure there'll be some links or in the show notes or what have you. Yeah, you find a bunch of videos there and further resources.
Nice, nice. Linus, I want to really appreciate your time for spending the time you've spent with us. I've really learned a lot from your story, how you really got from where you are to from where you've been to where you are now. And one thing that I want to say is that your experience is really going to help a lot of people, because you mentioned about how to really get unstuck and ways to figure out on your own, or whether it is good to get someone to help you or do it on your own. And one thing that we learned so far is that once you get someone to help you, you are able to make more out of your learning process than figuring it out on your own. So I want to appreciate your time, and thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. Had a good time.